Mastermind family, welcome back to the show. I am your host, JoJo, and today's Artist Motivation, where we bring on the hottest, latest artists and allow them to bring insight, inspiration, and hope so you can go out and create amazing content. And we have a very special guest on the show. We have Markus Brown. He's a freelancer, illustrator at his company called Red Premier Manga, studied at International School of Comics, and currently lives in Illinois, and he is creating a series called Shogun. And Markus, we want to welcome you to the show, man. So how's it going?
Thanks. Oh man, it's been a phenomenal week, man. I've been doing a little bit of traveling here and there.
Okay.
So I just came home not too long ago, and I've just been working ever since, man.
Okay. Well, I mean, I know you're a busy guy doing big things, and so what was the traveling for?
Well, I visit a couple cons.
Okay.
I visit Anime Expo not too long ago.
Ooh.
And there was another one that was in Illinois before I left. That was earlier in the month.
Okay.
And that was the one with I think it was C2E2, I believe. That was back in May. So that was a pretty good thing as well.
Nice. Okay. So how did the Anime Expo go for you?
It was pretty good. I hand out some flyers, talk to a couple people, try to spread the word around.
Now, were you a guest artist or exhibitor? Which one did you do?
Well, I was a guest, but things always don't turn out like they want to be. Like you expect things to do.
Sure.
The vendors, there's certain spots for a vendor, but you have to show up kind of early just to get things going.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like first come, first serve.
Understood. So
Yeah.
I got you. Well, cool, man. I mean, so I know we gave the people a little bit about your background, man, but we just got to know this important question, man. How did you actually get started on your journey as an artist, man? Walk us through what that was like.
Whew. All right. Well, in high school, I did a lot of art. I was in AP art class when I was in my sophomore year.
Mm-hmm.
And my art teacher, I love her to death. Her name was Miss Ada Bassett,
Mm-hmm.
and Miss A. And she pushed us a lot, to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like more being original. And, I kind of struggled a while to find my calling. She pushed us pretty hard, and I kind of struggled a lot because the thing is, with a lot of up and coming artists, people that's trying to find their art style and develop something by being motivated by lots of anime, and that's the thing. Watching anime can really mess up your art style after a while, because you get so many great ideas, but the thing is, they're not technically your ideas. And at this state, it's kind of hard to be original at anything because everything is kind of regurgitated, and that's kind of the problem that I had in high school. And when I first started out, I was kind of in the art field
Mm-hmm.
just for money, and I really wanted to create designs, but you know how you see some Instagram artists where they would copy something and kind of change it around a little bit and maybe use it as a sticker design or print it out on a t-shirt.
Yep.
Or what they call slap stickers in the car community as well.
Mm-hmm.
The anime thing, and you would see it done repeatedly, and it gets to the point to where it's not just plagiarism, it's mass produced by just about anybody. I can name a couple artists that their work has been printed out by these companies that you can take someone's picture off of Google or Pinterest, and you can make coffee mugs, handbags out of it, and it's those type of companies that allow plagiarism and things like that to happen.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it's out there. So the best way to get out of that stage is to not just stop watching anime. It's to read more manga and actually study, not just study from anatomy. That's the best way I can explain it, is to take pictures and use tons of references. I've had issues in the past where people were quoting me on certain things, or me in the use of certain references. Now, the best part about it is that once you study from anatomy,
Yep.
you actually get a sense of what the body looks like, how certain proportions are supposed to be. And don't get me wrong, it's boring. You know, it gets boring after a while, sketching. And I recently just became a digital artist. I switched from traditional to digital.
Okay.
And that was sort of the leap that actually helped my art development of my style in the long run, you know. So after I did that, pretty much where things start to come into play is I actually received help from a couple people, and I really got big into actually posting my art online after I graduated out of high school.
Right.
And I became part of all sorts of the small anime manga groups that, you know, they pretty much became drop groups where people would just come in, they would drop their work and leave feedback. And people, you know, I became part of that, you know.
Yeah.
And after a while, 2 or 3 years, I joined a group that was called Bama. I really loved the way that the group was set up, you know.
So what do you think of it now? Because it's not it's not Bama anymore, right? It's Noor or something like that.
Yeah, we changed the name. It's kind of a collaboration with the Nord Center Entertainment.
Yeah.
They kind of have their thing, and we kind of have like the offside thing where people come in and post their artwork and stuff like that. So it's definitely came a long way, you know.
Okay.
Most definitely came a long way.
Dope.
And actually, when I first came up with the idea for Shogun's Pass, I can remember it as clear as day. It was actually December 8th. It was like 2017, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple friends of mine, they were giving me feedbacks, and we were making like short stories and all sorts of little small. I was creating lots of one-shots at the time. And I was also working with a group called The Onion Junction. And The Onion Junction contained, I believe, about 7 artists and like 3 or 4 writers.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that was that a lot of the artists that were working with The Onion Junction, we currently had a setup where, you know, it was like, okay, well, we have to participate and do this, and you have this job and that job. But at the same time, these other artists, they were like, you know, well, we have our own project. We can't just stop and work on this thing for free and do this and that, you know?
Right.
So,
because that's not right. That's not right to them, and that's not fair to, you know, them. I mean, because you have to compensate them for their work in some shape or fashion, whether it's a partnership or you give them like $50, something. Like, there's just, you got to do something.
Right, exactly. And believe it or not, I wasn't really too big on reading manga at the time. I was always watching anime. It was never really in Japanese. I didn't like the sub anime. I was interested in dubbed. And I never really read any manga. I knew what manga was. I mean, I even paid for, like, when I was in junior high, I paid for the Shonen Jump comic issues, just the monthly, you know, issues, just to look at the comics and stuff. But the more I got into it, I was like, okay, like, I had to sit down and I had to figure out what do I want to do with my life, you know? And that's where I met this guy. His name is David L. He goes by David L. And he's like an instructor. He's from New York, and he pretty much helps people that wants to develop their own art style. Pretty much he sits down, talks with you on Skype, and he pretty much asks you, like, what do you want out of this? Is this something that you just want to do for yourself? Is this something that you want to take mainstream? And he goes through with you, like, the steps that you actually have to take to achieve those goals. And the funny part about it is Well, he does charge a fee, and I never did really get a chance to truly work with him, but he seen that I was like super passionate about it. So he gave me his free book, and his free book, it actually helped me out a lot. And just from the Skype call, the free book that he gave me, and the steps that were in the book, like how to start off with your own character sheets, that was a big thing. The plot, beginning, middle, and end. Just those small things actually helped me out a lot, and it made me gravitate towards the next step. And a person, his name is Max Manga. He's a really good friend of mine. I've actually met him through one anime group, and he was another artist that was a part of the Onion Junction.
Max Manga's cool.
What's that?
I said Max Manga's cool. Okay.
You met him before, or
just talk with him?
Okay, yeah. He works with I'm not sure if he's still part of the Onion Junction, but the name of his manga is Impact.
Right.
I can remember some of the characters, but Max helped me out a lot, and he actually opened my eyes a little bit to detailed manga. And if it wasn't for him, my art style probably wouldn't be the way it is now. He showed me manga like Berserk. I never knew what Berserk was.
Whoa, you never knew what Berserk was? Oh.
At the time, dude, I didn't know Berserk. I was a mainstream guy.
Man.
I mean, I was old school at the same time. I was born in '94, so at that time, you can tell probably what I was watching. It was either Dragon Ball Z,
Naruto,
or Naruto.
Bleach.
I'm not even a big Naruto fan anymore. I hate the Narutards. I don't even read the manga. I can't stand it anymore, dude. Like, there's just certain things I don't even watch. There's shows that I can't even watch anymore that's shonen. There's a lot of shonen shows that I can't watch. I can't watch My Hero Academia anymore. I just can't. There's shows I haven't even got into. Like, every once in a while, I'll probably go back and watch maybe like Inuyasha. I'm a big fan of Yu Yu Hakusho. Yep. The old school stuff, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the stuff that I can gravitate more, you know. What's another one? Fist of the North Star. Just tons of old shows, you know. And once I've actually started to read manga, kind of like the Musashi manga and stuff like that, and the Sunken Rock. Mm-hmm. Oh man. And what's another one? They recently just made an anime out of it. Dr. Stone.
Yeah, Dr. Stone.
Like, yeah, and for me actually studying anatomy for that while I was in college, Max, he had me doing all sorts of things, and it was kind of embarrassing because Max at the time, he was only like 13. And I was like, I was going on like 20 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I had this kid telling me like, okay, this is what you got to do. He's like, go to Google, go to Pinterest, and just grab a bunch of photos from magazines that had like anatomy, just showing you how the body works and different still shots of poses. And he just had me sketching all types of stuff. And I'm like, dude, this is actually working. And then once I got done with that, that's around 2013. When I switched to digital art. Mm-hmm. First digital art thing I got was the Wacom, you know, the pen tablet, and then I moved up to the bamboo tablet into the Cintiqs and stuff like that. And then I switched over to the Mac, and that's when I started to upgrade all the equipment and start to get more familiar with Manga Studio and Clip Paint Studio. And around that time, from searching online, I met White Manga.
Okay.
I can forget his name. His name is, I think he's from Nigeria or something. I can't remember his name. But that's when I met him. I talked to him for a while on Facebook.
Nice.
And it's when I actually found out that, like, whoa, he's buzzing, you know. I showed him Shogun's Past. He likes it. And this was the earlier stages of Shogun's Past. This is when I was around passing out the synopsis. And you can go to our channel and check out the synopsis, or you can go to Instagram or our Facebook page and just see what the story's about, you know. And around that time, I did the first chapter. It was I just wanted to kind of test the waters, you know. So I put out a one shot for Shogun's Pass, and I put it out. I uploaded it to Webtoons, and it got really big. And good or bad feedback, I got. To me, it was all good feedback. All feedback is good to me, good or bad.
Right.
And it gave me like a key that I can like run with. Like, okay, these are the things that I need to do to, you know, improve on, you know.
Sure.
And once I decided, I'm like, okay, all right, I really need to set up a budget, you know. If I'm gonna work full time, because I still have to pay bills, still have to pay for food, work and eat. Like, when am I gonna have time to do this? And I kind of debated for a while, or at least about 6 months. Should I set up a Patreon account or a GoFundMe, or, you know, because people were really digging Shogun's Past at the time, and I was honored, you know, and that made me sit down and actually write more about the story and not just about the filler and all the crazy stuff. Some people, when they write manga, they just go with the flow. But the one thing that David did teach me is to start with a beginning, middle, and end. Something that's the main foundation, you know. And for me, getting inspired by people like Tony Jackson, Micah Sozo, and Andrew DeAndre. The guy, he's the owner of Plus Manga. He also has a platform that he told me once we start getting it up and running, you know, he might have a spot for me, you know, things I can just upload on there.
Yeah.
And from there, he actually introduced me, because he was telling me that, you know, there's not a lot of artists that are successful that's a one-man show. You know, if you planning to be serious about it, it's best to have a team. And, you know, he introduced me to a couple people. I worked with one team. They were called I can't remember the name, but they were from out of India, and they did commission work for artists that wanted to create their own manga. You know, some people can't. There's a lot of artists that can't draw, and that's understandable. But there's a lot of great storytellers, you know, and people, they need to be able to have somebody to go to work with. And there are people out there that have really amazing, good art skills that you can pay, and they will help you with your work as a functionable team for a certain price, of course. Now, and that's the thing when you're working with people from outside of the country. If you live in the United States, there's a way of going about doing it. And working with TransferWise is one of the best systems that's set up to actually, if you want to work with someone that's in another country and you want to wire them money or pay them every month or every week for art or a commission or something, you know, depending on what it is. You can be into crafts or anything of that sort. And TransferWise is a good way of going about doing that, you know. So like what's like the, from your perspective, like what are some practical things that artists that may be listening to this can do to actually, you know, make money? And that's the thing. You have to first realize, like, what are you going to get out of it? And the sad reality is that you're probably going to be spending more money than you're making back off of your craft. But you have to sit down with yourself and say, okay, what are you trying to get out of it, you know? And that's kind of the sad reality with even some professional artists out there that's working. Like, some of them are not really rich, you know, but they're very famous and their craft is very known. And eventually, after a while, it does pay off, you know? And that's kind of the situation I'm in right now. I'm actually spending more money than I am making off of my manga, you know. But in the long run, it definitely is going to pay off. I'm 100% positive that it's going to pay off. And
right. So then, like as you're putting money into your manga, um, obviously, you know what are some things that artists can do to actually, you know, get their work out to people and get, you know, recognized? What are
Well,
ways that you're doing?
well, first, mainstream media is one thing. Instagram, Facebook, they have basically built. They already have a foundation set up to where we can advertise our work. We can pay for advertisement, And if you're really adventurous, you can do what I do. You can actually go out, make prints, sell prints in person. Go to my friend Mitchell. He has a bookstore where that's kind of like free advertisement for me. Where you can go online. I can set up cards and put prints around his bookstore, around the comic shop, and it gets people interested.
Mm-hmm.
And YouTube, you have to be out there. It's really about, because the internet is everything, and that's another thing that kind of caught my eye. Not a lot of people read paperback manga anymore. A lot of people are reading manga off of their phone. There are tons of apps. I use webtoons because it works for me, the layout. But there are tons of other ones other than webtoons. And there are even online manga magazine companies now, kind of like Saturday AM. There's a lot of them out there. Saturday AM is just not one of them. That's one popular one. But of course, you have others like Plus Manga and the Nord Entertainment. They all have their weekly magazines. So that's one potential way of going about doing things. It's kind of like starting your own brand. But when I started Red Premier is basically a clothing brand. So, to talk more about Shogun's Pass, it's an open world. It starts very small and then it kind of blossoms into a bigger environment. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the designs that I draw for the characters in Shogun's Pass, I'm actually capable of creating. That's kind of where my craft blossoms. I can actually sew and iron press clothing, things of that sort. And that's kind of where Red Premier comes in at. It's kind of like a fallback, and that's where a lot of the manga comes from. If you want to put, support the manga, you can actually buy the clothes that some of the characters wear. And the thing with a lot of creators, they kind of have one outfit or one design that character goes off, and to keep it more realistic, more breathable, that's kind of how I wanted Shogun's Pass to be, is something that's fluent when the reader, not just of one type of small section, I want it to be fluent, I want boys, girls of all ages to be able to enjoy Shogun's Pass and not be like, the story is okay, but it's only meant for boys and girls of this age, that reader type,
Right.
Or if you're into this, if someone were new or people that not even into manga and they would have picked up Shogun's Pass and read it, they was like, okay, I can get into this, and maybe that can be a gateway into other anime,
Right.
And I'm not saying that Shogun's Pass is super original at all. I've gotten inspiration from many things, movies, anime, one anime in particular. I'm not sure if you remember this. This is really old. Have you ever remember the Guyver?
Yeah.
Guyver Unit?
Yep.
Really old anime show. There's a lot of science fiction. There's a lot of urban culture,
yep.
Parkour, just a lot of things based in Shogun's Pass. And it was really titled, what was the other title? I call it the story in mind before I actually came up with the title of Shogun's Pass. But once I kind of got an idea of what I wanted to do with Shogun's Pass, that's when it became Shogun's Past. And to get into a little more about that, Shogun's Past is about a 19-year-old boy. His name is Zach Sosa. He lives in Chicago.
Okay.
And he has a group of friends. Now, Zach, he's very intelligent, but he's also mischievous. The story takes place in 2019 in the beginning, and then the rest of Volume 1 and on and off becomes a flashback.
Sure.
Of his older years, which were in 2002, 2003, around those years, where life was somewhat good for 90s kids. We were into skateboarding, X Games, things of that sort, you know?
Yeah.
So you see a lot of callbacks. There weren't really too many smartphones or things of that sort back then. So that's one thing that a lot of probably the younger generation wouldn't really understand. And along with the art style of Shogun's Past, what I do now is I create these storyboards because, of course, I'm working a part-time job and I sell furniture. I'm a furniture salesman. So between doing that, traveling, and being able to write stories and do storyboards for Shogun's Past, I had to have a really good team. And that's when DeAndre, he introduced me to a guy from the Philippines. And this was not too long ago. This was actually probably the beginning of this year. And me and him became really good friends. Like, I can't explain the chemistry. Like, the chemistry is like spot on, and his art style is very similar to mine. And when I first met Alamir, his art style was it was kind of semi-realistic.
Yeah.
And it was fine, but it really wasn't the art style that I really wanted, you know, that I wanted to improve upon myself. So that's something we kind of worked on together, because me and him, we were more black and white artists. You know, we didn't really do anything in color. So that's when he knew someone. He could also do color, but it's not our strongest point, you know. And that's when we met Frady. It was a friend of his, and he brought her along. And, you know, of course, I interviewed her, and I seen what her work schedule was like. And, of course, she sent me her portfolio. And from there, I love the amazing colors. She actually colored the cover, the original cover for Shogun's Past, you know. And from there, I worked with a lot of other artists, some you may know, and just to get an idea of what the cover was going to be for Shogun's Past, I hired a couple other artists that drew different art, more than likely just different concept designs that I really wanted to go with. Yeah. Because I was unsure at the time, you know. And that was kind of one thing, trying to find what they're displayed like, because that's the first thing people look at before they even pick up the book. They look at the cover and say, is this even interesting? Something that I want to be gravitate towards, you know? And that's kind of what I wanted it to be. You know, I wanted to represent the entire volume 1.
Right.
You know?
That's pretty important. I mean, just in touching that topic, I mean, that's the first thing that people look at is the cover. And so if they're scrolling through and your cover doesn't make them stop or pull some type of emotion out of them, then they're going to just keep scrolling through.
Right. You know, and Markus, he's something else, man. Like, he's a cocky artist, man. Like, dude is good. Like, I can literally give him anything. We use references a lot. We use references from movies, different scenes, different camera angles. We try to swap over into 2D, art style, because Markus, he's a traditional artist, and Freddie, she's a digital artist like me. So most of like the effects that you see are all traditionally drawn, and he draws everything. Of course, when he makes certain mistakes, me and Freddie, we can go in and digital fix it, certain different body proportions if things look a little off. But there's a lot of, he still has his moments where he has like, okay, things can look super realistic, similar to Sunken Rock, and then it can maybe switch to like depending on what's the vibe of the panel, it can maybe revert to something more cartoonier,
Sure.
Depends on how the character is responding to a certain situation, and that's the thing I love about him, man. I love him like my brother, we both have a weekly salary, and we have money that we put aside for the manga. So technically, I pay Markus, I pay him, I believe, $30 per page.
Okay.
And that's a little bit above minimum wage in the Philippines. Right now, the situation he's in the Philippines, it's kind of harsh. It's not too harsh, but their weather, their working conditions, certain things like Wacom tablets, it's really hard for him to get. There's certain things that he can't order on Amazon, and that's the reason why this year I'm actually going to start a Patreon for Shogun's Pass once the first 3 chapters are released, and then we're going to take a small break to really what I've been doing in advertisement right now has just been basically testing the waters. I haven't even started to really push it. I'm really just going to go full on, full time.
Yeah.
So right now it's getting out there. We recently just made the Instagram page. So our Instagram page is fairly new. If you scroll down even further, you'll see some of the older artwork that I used to do, and kind of the traditional work, because I don't do a lot of traditional work anymore. Everything that I do now is digital.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, it sounds like you have a solid plan. I mean, so what's your plan of strategy to basically promote your Patreon, promote the manga, and let people know what you're doing to kind of give the audience an understanding of what your game plan actually is?
Well, what we're doing right now is, from the looks of it, Shogun's Pass, the value, once we actually do come with the hardcover, it's going to be pretty big. I didn't think Volume 1 was going to be that big until I actually looked back into all the notes that I wrote. Each chapter is about 30 pages long. And we also have chapter art, and I decided to do something a little different, and we talked about it for a while, because we still want to be somewhat original, so pretty much the end game plan is, when we actually create the hard copy, that's where hopefully I can make my money back out of all the money that I spent. So everything that comes from the hard copy, with me pushing the hard copy, and that way I can actually successfully set up vendor spots at these different anime cons. That's where things really start to kick off, But as for right now, we just want to bring in as much attention to Shogun's Pass as we can, and just share everything with everyone online. I believe the first 7 chapters are going to be online for free. Now, Shogun's Pass is about, it's pretty hung. I think let's see, it's about 60 chapters in Shogun's Past, just in volume 1. And so far, each chapter is about 30 pages long. And, you know, for a manga, even finding a printing company that's willing to do paperbacks, you know, with the right card stock, you know, you can look this stuff up, and it's kind of hard to find a printing company that's willing to print something that thick, depending on how thick each page is, you know. Right. And converting that, like, that's where we're kind of taking baby steps, because it's kind of easier to upload it as a webcomic, because everyone knows the layout to a webcomic is something totally different from actually a hardback. And that's the thing, because Markus, he's used to doing full spreadsheets, you know, where you open the book and there's just one big action scene where everything is just one page pretty much, instead of panels on 2 different pages, you know. And that's something you can look forward to in fighting scenes. But actually conversing that into webcomic layout where the reader just scrolls up, it's kind of hard to have just one big action scene, you know, because there's only a certain size where you can crop the photo to that Webtoons will allow you to upload, you know. So that's one thing we have to look out for. Right. But that's pretty much the goal right now, is for, at the end of this year, well, a little bit before the end of this year, you can expect Shogun's Past Volume 1, 2, and 3 to be posted up on Webtoons by at least October 28th.
Nice. And so, from your journey as an artist, like, what would you say is the one thing that you would, I guess, advise to people who are getting ready to take on being an artist? What's the one piece of advice that you would give them?
The one piece of advice is to sit down and ask yourself, what do you truly want? Like, what do you truly want out of it? The best thing I can say is to talk to other artists. Some artists, they get in their little mood where they feel like, okay, they're the big stuff, they're the big cheese, where, okay, if you message them on Facebook or Instagram, they don't respond as quickly. And it's not always the case. Some artists are actually truly that busy where they just don't have time to look their inbox. But then again, there's some artists like White Manga, like if I were to message him right now, if you were to message him, he would respond with no time, maybe 30 or 40 minutes. And White Manga is one person that I talk to that he's always busy, and he still has time to respond, you know, and he still has time to actually talk, even though out of all the videos he made, you know, giving people ways to do things. And if there's something that he made a video on how to do, he'll tell you, he'll even message you back and say, hey, you can go by doing this by blah, blah, blah. And I also uploaded a video on that if you want to check that out, you know. And he always gives good feedback, good criticism, you know, just a good critique overall. And that's pretty much what it's about, you know, is actually sitting down and having a talk with yourself and just literally trying to map things out and say, hey, do I just want to be a person or artist that just do only commission work or only illustrations of different characters from other anime and sell them out as prints, you know? Or do you actually want to be a manga artist, sit down and actually go with the cons and the pros of being a manga artist, you know? It's fun until it's not fun, you know? If you're not going to actually enjoy doing it, and if it becomes more of a headache to you, and you're like, oh, okay, now I have to sit down and storyboard like 3 pages, or okay, I'm gonna put out 2 pages a week, or I'm gonna try to put out 3 pages a week, but it's hard and I have to go to work in the morning, I'm gonna be tired and I have back pains from sitting down all day. Or, you know, or actually, well, I forgot a saying. Our old saying says, you can study something, but if you study it for, I think, 1,000 hours.
Yeah, 10,000 hours.
10 hours a day. I forgot. You know what I'm talking about. I forgot how it goes. Yeah. You become a master at anything, you know.
Yeah.
It's just all about taking the time.
Right.
You know. That's all it is. And sometimes it's okay because we're only human. We all can't do it, you know. We can't do it by ourselves. Creating an actual manga entirely by yourself, it's somewhat unheard of, you know. I mean, there's people like a Kishimoto. Even he has a team of people that work on there's somebody that's inking the pages. There's somebody that's printing. You know, there's people out there that's doing that. It's just not him himself, you know. And there are artists in the Philippines and in Japan that's treated like complete garbage. You would be surprised, like how hard they work and how little they get paid.
Right.
Like minimum wage to us in the United States, if we're complaining, I know some places are $10 an hour, some places are 11, and some places are even 9. In the Philippines, I think minimum wage is like either $3 or $4 an hour.
Yeah,
I'm not even joking, dude.
Yeah.
I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
So, you know, like you would have to Google it, but it's crazy, you know. And man,
yeah, and I would say that's actually very good practical things that a person can actually do. Is just sit down and just kind of be real with themselves and actually ask themselves the question, like, what is it exactly that I'm wanting to achieve? What is my goal? And what am I going to do to get there? Because if you don't have a goal, you don't have a direction.
Exactly.
So, and you need to come up with a plan and execute on the plan. And sometimes you have to make adjustments in the plan. And then, you know.
It's a life decision. It really is.
Yeah.
It's really a life decision. Out of all the other artists I talk to, they literally tell you it's a life decision, you know. If you're going to, what's the point of doing something if you're not going to put your all into it?
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
And it's different. Sometimes if you just want to make a small one-shot manga for yourself, you know, there's nothing wrong with doing it. What's the guy that created One Punch? His name's One. Like his original comic of One Punch Man, it was kind of stick-man-y, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He drew little funny shapes and stuff like that, and then it caught on in Japan and it blew up. And I forgot the other artist that kind of took his story and made it into something that's freaking amazing, you know.
Right.
And they kind of run together with each other, and it's, you know, sometimes it happens, you know, things happen, you know. But if you work on something, for example, I'm not expecting like a big wave of people to come into Shogun's Pass and like, oh man, Volume 1 is amazing. Like Shogun's Pass honestly might not like actually kick over until probably like Volume 3 or 4, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because and another thing that I really didn't touch upon, like Volume 1 has at least about a good 60 characters, and when you're creating characters, depending on like if you're going to actually take the time to draw a storyboard for that character or create an entire design and a character sheet for that character, give them a backstory. Mm-hmm. You have to have the reader actually care about that character, or either hate that character or despise that character, where they just want to see like, okay, let me see what's going to happen in this volume or this chapter to this character, you know. It's crazy, you know. And that's kind of what I'm doing with Shogun's Pass. The future of Shogun's Pass, I think I'm going to, because I have several main characters in Shogun's Pass that I just want to take the time to fully develop those characters. And that's where it kind of comes in, where I said at first that a person that's going to pick up Shogun's Pass, they don't even have to be into anime or manga. They just can like that certain character. And I'm going to have that volume just specifically for that character, sort of evolve around that character. And then maybe the 10th volume, kind of like what Marvel does with the Avengers. They set up small movies for individual characters so you can have attached to that character. And then once the big phase comes in, all the characters are together and you like, hey, that's the character that I love the best. And You know, Shogun's Pass is full of vigilantes. You know, that's basically what they are. Just normal people doing kind of crazy things. You know.
Right. That's cool, man. So like, what would you say? Last words of wisdom, man. Like, what would be the thing that you would like to impart on the show, man?
Um. That's a good question. I can't really think of one. I would say, I don't want to sound too cliche.
Say what you think you're gonna say.
Either, just try to draw every day. If that's something you really love, try to look at different fields of things instead of just one genre of something, because each genre has its own fan base, So try to test the waters. That sounds weird.
No, that's true. I mean, kind of experiment, right?
Yeah.
Well, I would think that, that's what people don't understand, is that you don't know exactly what people like until you actually experiment. And that's how you can figure out, okay, this is something that's worth, building a little bit more, or, okay, maybe I can, tweak it a little bit, and you can just experiment and find out what you actually like and what you're finding out that your audience likes. But it's important to actually know what your audience likes, because otherwise,
exactly,
you won't see them again.
Exactly.
So
that's why I always say it's best to start out with a one shot, just to see if you even have an audience for that particular comic or that theme that you're trying to do. Because people will tell you, the internet is something else, man. People will tell you if you're copying this, or this is plagiarism, or your character looks too similar to this person. People will let you know.
Right, exactly.
Let you know, man.
Exactly.
That's why I say try to draw from real life. Once you start, even it's not just drawing from real life. Try even creating a story from real life. Right. Like, for example, when I read Berserk, at first I'm like, okay, what is the point of this? It's just a comic about knights and dragons and fighting armor, until you get to that final chapter where the shit just flips. And things go crazy, and you're like, whoa, okay, this is like a sci-fi horror type genre, and you're not expecting that,
Right.
So I would say try to start from real life before you get into like, okay, this character has certain powers, I mean, if you do want to create something like that, but just don't make a copy of Dragon Ball Z, like for example, certain characters in Shogun's Pass, they have like certain powers, but it's more evolved around the element. It's sort of like Street Fighter, if I can relate the characters to anything, it's like a Street Fighter or Tekken. Sometimes certain characters might shoot something out of their hand, but it comes from their chi, chakra, kai energy, or whatever.
Yeah.
It evolves around stuff like that.
Yeah.
But characters are just not just automatically going to lift off the ground and start flying unless they're from another planet or something. That's why I say, well, some people say overthinking is bad. Trust me, it doesn't hurt to overthink. Sometimes you have to get out of yourself and look at your comment, look at what you've done from someone else's perspective. Be like, okay, if I'm reading this and I'm picking this up from the first time, like, what am I going to notice? Oh, this character looks similar to that character, or this backstory seems way too similar to that character's backstory,
Exactly.
Things like that, So that's about it,
And man, that's awesome. That's really, really awesome words of wisdom, my man. And Markus Brown, thanks for being on the show, man.
Appreciate it, man.
And tell the people, where can they find and connect with you, man?
Oh man, for all the updates on Shogun's Pass, you can check me out at Instagram, Mark_Reels. That's MARK_REALLZ Browns. Mark Rouse. And then you can also check out Shogun's Past on Facebook, and that's just like for anything that's coming out. If you want to check on and see when the manga actually drops, that will be the best place. Even though Instagram, you'll find out on Instagram as well. But Red Premier Manga on Facebook, that's REDPREMIR, Red Premier Manga. And that's where you will find the very first, which once chapter 1, 2, and 3, when that comes out, you won't be able to see the original work for the Shogun's Past one shot anymore. And that's where all the original art that I've traditionally done. But all the designs and everything that you see in Shogun's Past is mine. But of course, the art style and stuff like that will be a la Markus' art. And, he's a phenomenal artist, and you can check him out as well on the Red Premier Manga page. And that's about it, man.
Awesome. Mastermind family, that is going to do it for the show. Be sure to like, subscribe, and if you want more videos like this, and just tune in to more of our podcasts and artist motivation, and we'll see you guys on the next one.